The movie starts off with John, a special ops officer, in poor mental and physical health as a result of losing his comrades in war. He is so despondent that he has loaded a gun with bullets and left one chamber empty as he considers taking his own life. Fortunately for him, he accidentally fires the gun in an empty chamber. He then leaves to purchase alcohol, still consumed by his misery. While shopping, he becomes a witness to a robbery where two armed individuals steal money from the store owner. Despite the danger, John is indifferent and unresponsive to the robbers. One of the robbers points a gun at John and threatens him, but John tells the robber to shoot him in the head, hoping for a quick death. The robber was startled, allowing John to take the gun from him and strike him with it. The second robber attempted to attack John with a knife, but John disarmed him and also hit him with it. As he prepared to kill the second robber, John flashes back to his experiences in war, causing him to spare the man's life. He then takes the money that the robbers stole and returns it to the supermarket owner, before taking the alcohol and returning home. Upon arriving home, John's mental state is in a very poor condition and he engages in excessive exercise, including punching walls. The following day, John's sister Cindy visits him, informing him that she had been trying to reach him for some time, but he had not responded to her calls. John apologizes to her and the two of them go out to dinner at a restaurant. During their conversation, Cindy discovers that John is no longer taking antidepressants and has replaced them with something else. She tells John that she is leaving for Brazil to work with a humanitarian aid organization helping people in favelas. The next day, she leaves while John is asleep, traveling to Rio de Janeiro. In Brazil, two officers are seen patrolling the slum area when a young girl approaches them to report that a body of a girl has been found on the beach. Catarina, one of the officers, immediately goes to the scene and discovers that the body is that of Cindy, John's sister, who is barely alive. Catarina quickly calls for an ambulance to take Cindy to the hospital. At the American embassy, two Brazilian officers, Tiago and Carlo, inform the American ambassador about Cindy's condition. The ambassador contacts John to inform him of the incident and requests his presence to assist in the investigation into his sister's murder. Upon receiving the news, John immediately sets off for Brazil. Catarina, Tiago, and Carlo were working together on a case, but Tiago was belittling Catarina for her method of using drinks as incentives to gain the cooperation of street dwellers. Tiago then arrested some street dwellers who were found to be dealing in arms, but the street gangs surrounded the policemen. Tiago proposed a fight between the gang leader's top fighter and Tiago's best cop to resolve the situation. He proposed a deal to the gang leader that if the gang's fighter emerged victorious, the investigation would be halted. But if the police officer won, the gang would allow the investigation to continue with their cooperation. The gang leader accepted the terms and chose one of his men to fight against Carlo. The fight began and Carlo emerged victorious due to his superior fighting skills. Tiago informed the street gangs that he will investigate anyone in the neighborhood at any time and place. John arrived in Brazil and was greeted by the U.S. ambassador, Manny, who was his friend. Manny then took John to the hospital where Cindy was in a critical condition and in a coma. At the hospital, John met Officer Tiago who was investigating the case. John then asked the officers who would attack his sister, who was helping the poor through volunteer work. John was determined to visit the scene of the crime, so Tiago took him in his car. Along the way, John noticed that there were many girls in the neighborhood who were working as prostitutes. Tiago introduced John to Catarina and in a moment of confusion, John grabbed Catarina's gun upon hearing gunshots. But it turned out the noise was coming from a passing car, not gunfire. The neighborhood gangs noticed John was armed and pointed their weapons at him. Tiago managed to defuse the situation and asked the gang members to stand down. John apologized and explained that he was exhausted from his trip. Catarina led John to the location of the incident. John knew that it would be difficult to find witnesses as the area was controlled by gangs. Afterwards, John went to the hospital to visit his sister, but there he saw an Asian nurse administering a substance into his sister's medical solution. He then noticed that his sister was experiencing strange convulsions. John went to find the nurse who had been administering the substance, but she was nowhere to be found. The doctor revealed that Cindy had been injected with a substance that caused her convulsions. The hospital staff also did not know of any Asian nurse matching the description provided by John. Manny, along with Tiago, arrived at the hospital and met with John. They informed him that there were no Asian nurses working at the hospital. Tiago informs John that he will station guards to safeguard Cindy. The following day, John visits the location of the incident and observes a group of young men nearby. He approaches them and attempts to speak with one named Coca. However, Coca flees, but John pursues him and shows him a picture of his sister and inquires if he recognizes her. Additionally, John observes that the chain Coca is wearing belongs to his sister. When Coca refused to speak, John struck him. Others then attacked John, but he successfully fought them off and threatened Coca that he will harm him if he doesn't reveal where he obtained the chain. Katarina arrives and urges John to leave Coca alone. Eventually, John discovers that Cindy had given the chain to Coca. Furthermore, he learns that Coca's sister, who used to work with Cindy, is also missing. John apologizes to Coca for hitting him. Coca offers to bring something for John from his home. He then takes John and Katarina to his home and hands John Cindy's diary. John apologizes again and requests Coca to keep the chain. Katarina informs John that they have observed multiple girls going missing in the neighborhood recently. John inspects the car for fear that someone may have placed a bomb under it. They then depart in the car. However, an Asian girl who had portrayed a nurse at the hospital is observing them. While sitting at a bar, John examines Cindy's diary and notices a missing page, but Cindy had left a carbon copy in the notebook. John copies the carbon paper onto a blank sheet of paper and notices traces of Cindy's writing on the missing page. It was a phone number. He then calls the number and a man who owns a photography studio answers. John requests a meeting with him. John then goes to meet the man, named Bruno. Bruno informs John that Cindy had made a deal with him to film her meeting a particular individual. Cindy believed that this person was connected to the disappearance of girls in the neighborhood. John asks Bruno to give him a copy of the photographs, but Bruno declines as he doesn't want to get hurt. John knows that Bruno has the photographs on him. Without Bruno's knowledge, John steals a flash drive containing the photographs. After Bruno enters his car, it explodes as it had been tampered with. John spots the Asian girl at the scene and discovers she was responsible for Bruno's death, the photographer. John chases her, but she manages to flee in a car with other individuals. John is ambushed by men in a car who open fire on him. He manages to grab a weapon from a deceased security guard and fights back, injuring multiple attackers, causing them to retreat. John then goes to the embassy, where he reunites with Manny. They come across a photo of the individual who had previously met with Cindy and notice the name of a nightclub reflected in the window of the car in the picture. John and Manny head to a nightclub to locate the person who had been with Cindy before the accident. John spots the individual and follows him as he enters the bathroom, carrying a bag. John attempts to enter the bathroom as well, but is stopped by a security guard. He overpowers the guard and goes into the bathroom. John encounters a smuggler named Lima and inquires about Cindy. Initially, Lima declines to provide information, but John becomes physical and Lima reveals that Cindy was informed of Lima's involvement in trafficking girls, and when she came to confront him, they were observed by a third party who subsequently assaulted Cindy. John obtains the address of the attacker from Lima under the threat of retaliation if Lima lied. Tiago convenes with his colleagues in law enforcement and informs them of an operation targeting drug and prostitution gangs. Manny joins John in investigating the location provided by Lima in search of the individual responsible for Cindy's attempted murder. Meanwhile, Tiago and other officers carry out raids on gang members. John reaches the location where he believes the person who attempted to harm his sister is located. Upon entering, he is greeted by a girl. Upon learning of his arrival, they contact an Asian girl who is also present in the vicinity. She observes John from a higher level, recognizes him, and expresses her reluctance to anger their leader, Hiramoto. Given this situation, the Asian girl requests that they eliminate John discreetly. One of Hiramoto's associates takes John to an isolated balcony away from others. While there, John observes individuals bringing in girls and recognizes one of them as Maria, the sister of someone he knows named Coco. Suddenly, an individual approaches John from behind, attempting to strangle him with a rope, but John successfully defends himself by striking the person with a bag. John stealthily reaches the location where the abducted girls are being held. Meanwhile, Tiago and other officers are conducting raids on drug gangs. One of the officers pursues a gang member while another officer comes across a vehicle with a group of men abducting young girls. The officer intervenes, kills one of the kidnappers, apprehends an Asian individual, and requests assistance from Tiago. Tiago and Carlo arrive on the scene and observe the police officer's arrest of a gang member. Tiago grabs the weapon belonging to the other man and points it at the Asian individual, but unexpectedly kills the police officer. Tiago informs the Asian man that his payment will be doubled for keeping silent. Tiago contacts the Asian girl and informs her that he has carried out the agreement by eliminating Cindy, John's sister. The girl informs John that he will receive his payment at the port. It is revealed that Tiago is the traitor who conspired to murder Cindy in collusion with the Japanese YUSA gang, and that Carlo is also involved with them. The Asian girl then contacts Hiramoto and informs him that John is at the location and in possession of counterfeit smuggling documents. Hiramoto instructs her to conceal the girls and evacuate the guests from the location. He also orders her to go to the hospital to eliminate Cindy. He instructs Tiago to eliminate John. Hiramoto then executes Lima, the informant who caused the gang's exposure. John fights a large number of individuals at the location. Tiago orders the other officers to go to the site where John is and arrest him. When Tiago arrives, he demands John to surrender. Katerina also arrives and John informs them that Hiramoto was the one who attempted to murder Cindy, and that he saw Hiramoto and his associates bring her to that location. When John leads them to the location, they find that the girls are no longer there, as Hiramoto had removed them. John presents evidence to Tiago of Hiramoto's involvement in trafficking girls out of the country, showing them the fake shipping documents he found. Tiago expresses gratitude to John and takes possession of the documents, promising to personally investigate the matter. Tiago requests that Katerina escort John away. Once outside, John discovers Tiago's treachery when Tiago demands Lima's bag from John, though John had not previously mentioned Lima to him. John instructs Katerina to go to the hospital to safeguard Cindy. The Asian girl is seen in the hospital attempting to murder Cindy, but Katerina arrives in time and kills her. Tiago goes to the port to collect the payment, but John is concealed in the trunk of Tiago's vehicle. John observes the gang loading girls into shipping containers, preparing to traffic and sell them in Japan. John contacts Manny for assistance and informs him of Tiago's collaboration with Hiramoto. John engages in a confrontation with Hiramoto's gang and shoots multiple members. Upon realizing John's presence, Hiramoto orders his remaining men to eliminate him. Despite the odds against him, John manages to kill a significant number of them, including Tiago and Carlo. Hiramoto attempts to kill John with a sword, but John's superior fighting abilities allow him to defeat all three of them. John then approaches the dying Tiago and takes a key from him, which unlocks a safe located at a train station. Tiago reveals to John that the safe contains a list of names of individuals associated with Hiramoto. Tiago explains to John that he entered into a partnership with Hiramoto due to a desire to lift his family out of poverty. He then pleads with John to end his life, but instead, John leaves a firearm with a single bullet and exits the scene. A gunshot is heard, indicating that Tiago has taken his own life. The police forces arrive at the location and rescue all the kidnapped girls, including Maria, the sister of John's acquaintance Coco. John visits his sister in the hospital, whose condition has improved but is still in critical state. The doctor informs John that her recovery will be a long process, and she may not be able to walk again. John then meets with Manny, who suggests that John work with the government in an unofficial capacity. Initially, John declines the offer, but he agrees after Manny assures him that the government will cover the cost of his sister Cindy's medical treatment. The movie concludes with Manny providing John with the file for his first mission.
Watch next and see how a professional assassin is forced to enter a maximum security prison to eliminate a notorious criminal, and 3 others in order to free his kidnapped girlfriend from a mafia boss. Please subscribe and turn on notifications to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.